Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to GameSpot's stage here at E3 2016. I'm delighted to be joined by the CEO of Respawn Entertainment, Mr. Vince Zampella. How you doing, Vince?
I'm doing well.
Let's do the handshake.
All right.
And maybe, you're gonna, see, we're mimicking each other with
Yes,
the...
sir.
E3's been on for a couple of days now, so the two of us are a little bit... I mean, you were up at a press conference 2 days ago showing off Titanfall, Titanfall 2, so you've had interviews non-stop now, right?
Yeah, it's we were just talking about it. It's really weird for me because the EA Play thing started on Sunday, so we've been doing demos and stuff Sunday, Monday. Today's the last day, and now everyone's just here all energized and woo, isn't it great? And I'm kind of like, I'm really tired.
You're done.
I don't know what to do. I feel like there's been a time shift.
Yeah, congratulations on announcing Titanfall 2. A little bit of a squeaky leak just before
Yeah,
you
that
went
was
live.
fun.
Not too bad to happen right before.
It was a few hours before,
Yeah.
so there was a lot of buzz around it, which is good. I guess that means people wanted to see it, which makes me happy.
So let's talk about it. I mean, single player was always the sort of the people thought was missing from the first game. I mean, campaign multiplayer, it worked in what it was trying to do.
It was the number 2 most played mode.
behind right.
Behind attrition, yeah.
Out of how many modes?
I don't even know now. We added some and we took some. Yeah,
So what? So people were playing it.
people played it.
So you kind of solved the problem, which was the people who don't play single player, who only play multiplayer, and the people who play single player never diving into the multiplayer. So in a way, does it feel weird that now you have a campaign, because it seems to kind of pay off?
Yeah, it's a little weird, but at the same time, it brings. There are still a group of players that they want that offline experience. They want to be able to play at their own pace, and as you get busier and busier in life, it makes sense. There's games where I'm like, I play it in 30-minute chunks over the course of weeks. So, giving that experience to players, ultimately we spend years of our lives pouring everything we have into something.
Yeah.
The more people that can see it, the better.
And it must have been flattering that there was a lot of people coming out of Titanfall 1 being, okay, you know what, I like this game for what it is in terms of its mechanics, but there is a universe here and I kind of want to know more about what's going on in it.
Absolutely.
So that must have felt good to go into Titanfall 2 and be like, okay, here you go.
Yes.
So in terms of that story, what are we looking at? Where does Titanfall 2's campaign sort of take place?
It takes place after Titanfall 1. It's not a direct sequel, so that's I think important to note is that you don't have to have played the original. You can pick this game up and jump right into it. It's fine, which is important, especially since we're coming to the PS4 now. So there's we have all our Xbox fans, who we do love. We're not abandoning. we love you guys. Thank you for everything. But now we want to add more. We want to add more players to the mix. So it was important to make sure this thing was kind of standalone. So the campaign takes place at some point after that. There will be some recurring characters, but it's not a direct sequel in that way. Yeah,
you'll be filling in the blanks for anyone who's never played it. So let's talk about the Titans. From what I've seen, I haven't played it, from my cursory glimpses as a fan of the first game, it looks like the Titans are sort of, they're more individualized. They look like they're maybe more powerful sort of in what they do in terms of the Titans in the previous games. There's going to be 6 new ones as well. Can you speak to sort of their abilities and their role within the battlefield?
Right. So in the previous game, a Titan fight, you kind of go in, you don't know what you're getting because the loadouts change.
Yeah.
In this game, all the Titans are very bespoke. So it's, you go up against, like the 2 we're showing today, Scorch and Ion. Scorch is, flame-based. He's very distinct. When you see him off in the distance, there's a visual cue of I know what fight I'm getting into. I mean, it's more like kind of like a Street Fighter approach where you say, I know what I'm fighting. I can adjust my play style in this fight now and go in, and it's a more strategic fight, so it feels better.
Okay, so presumably then there are some Titans which are better against other Titans. Or are there tactics that you can employ with each individual one?
Yeah, there's tactics that you will employ differently based on what you're fighting.
So are you trying to get those Titan fights to maybe be a little bit longer than they were in the first game? I mean, so much of the first game was, trying to get like 2-on-1 situations or trying to sort of use the map to your advantage. Are you trying to make a sort of a fighting game element there of like back and forth? Or?
Not necessarily super long, but we just want it to be more strategic. Instead of just like, I'm going to run up and we're going to play Rock'em Sock'em Robots, until somebody dies. It's, I can approach this a little more smartly and maybe I can have an advantage over you. I can beat you.
There must be a design challenge in trying to design another 6 Titans within this game and have them be visibly noticeable, to have those cues.
Yeah, I mean, we have these, so we have 6 new ones, but 6 total.
Okay.
So these are evolutions.
These are the new
original.
Titans.
Right.
Got it.
But yes, it's about putting them new in there. We have to balance them, visually, so that they're very distinct. We have to balance the gameplay. We have to balance the gameplay versus other Titans. We have to balance the gameplay versus pilots. We have, so it's always a delicate, kind of dance.
And you were careful in your messaging on the first game to sort of not overload gamers with all of the information up front about the various different types. So I kind of feel like maybe I'm wandering into an area of no response. But in terms of the soldiers then, the on-foot action, we've also seen a bunch of unique abilities happening there as well. Can you talk to some of those abilities, and are those class-based, or are those pickups? How is that working?
There are more class-based, but you'll be able to customize somewhat. But like you see, we have the grappling hook in this, which is an ability you'll pick. Not everyone has the grappling hook.
Okay.
So you have to choose if you want to play that. And that adds to it, just kind of a natural extension in some ways of the, you can do the wall running, the double jumping, the, all this vertical gameplay. The grappling hook just fits really nicely kind of into that whole system. And then we have other things like the blade, where you can kind of see. And this affects your team as well. So now you take this, you throw it out there, other people can see where enemies are.
Right. What does it feel like? You guys were kind of first out the gate with the player movement thing. Like, you were like, okay, you have worked on some very prestigious first-person games in the past. You have a new company. You want to make a mark. Titanfall was very much a new way of playing first-person shooters. And then you sort of saw Call of Duty end up going that direction. I mean, we now live in a world, we're talking about grappling hooks, and presumably you guys have all this stuff done before, but now we're now looking at a world where Cliff Blazinski's game's got a grappling hook in it. It's like Quake 2 mod has come back all over again. I mean, Overwatch as well. What does it feel like being sort of you were the harbingers of this new player movement thing, and we're enjoying this amazing first-person renaissance now?
Yeah, I think it's a natural evolution of, as players get better, they want something new, and one of the natural places to go is that movement and kind of make it more free. So I think it's just, I think it was bound to happen.
Yeah. What's it been like working on the campaign stuff as well? Has the team at Respawn grown? Have you you're also working on a Star Wars game as well that we've seen, so that's very interesting. Have you guys grown? Has it been good to get back into that? Did you miss it? Because, Call of Duty single players for years, the best ones were ones that you worked on. So it must be fun to get back into that.
It is fun to be able to kind of tell the story a different way, and it was, we have a lot of designers who have, a lot of experience kind of in telling these stories. So letting them, go wild and kind of make these snippets of things that later ended up becoming pieces of the game, like new mechanics and things that you'll only find in the single player. And there's some amazing pieces. I'd prefer people not to know about them till the game ships. I know that's probably not really likely to happen, but the longer we can keep it under wraps, the better. But there's some just amazing moments where we have some gameplay twists that I didn't necessarily expect, and we've had some prototypes and proof of concepts, and they were just fantastic.
And have you guys learned a lot in terms of the sort of the map design through doing your DLC stuff? Does the new sort of player movement mechanics, has that changed the way you guys are approaching map design as well? Because we're seeing a lot in the trailer of familiar stuff where it's oh yes, okay, windows placed beside walls to jump that way. But is there new sort of interesting ways to move around those maps?
I think we learned a lot just from making the last game and seeing what worked, and then doing some DLC and refining that even more. So I think the designers have gotten really good at kind of making those worlds work. You add new things like the grappling hook, you have to account for that and make sure there's new ways to use that take advantage of it, but at the same time, some people might not have it. So you have to make sure it works on both levels.
You guys are coming out in a pretty busy month as well. Was it March of 2014 was when Titanfall launched?
That's right.
It's kind of in its own little pocket. It got a lot of eyes on it. You're within a week now of Battlefield and The Last Guardian. The Elder Scrolls is the same week. Infinite Warfare is a week afterwards. Is there a worry that all this first-person nonsense is happening at the same time, and that you guys don't have that breath of air you had last time?
There are people that, they can't buy every game.
Right.
So they'll have to choose. So, we hope they choose ours.
Yeah.
The more games, the better for me. I want to play them all, so.
What's it been like? I guess we talk about Titanfall, probably in the press there's always this, we like to sort of say, okay, that was the narrative of that game. And Titanfall, when I talked to my peers here, was a game that a lot of us played very intensely for a month or 2 months. And it felt like there was a drop-off. Is that the case with users on Titanfall? Also, is that something you particularly care about? Holding someone's attention for that long is pretty good, right?
It's kind of goes both ways. If you can hold someone's attention for a couple months, that is pretty good.
Yeah.
But for a multiplayer game, you really want, the longer you can keep them, the better. You want that player base to grow with you, and you kind of, serve them new content and have a giant community around you. So I think we really did look at that, where there was more of a drop off than we wanted on the last game, and we've addressed that with, kind of a deeper progression system and more mechanics. I think it's a much more rounded gameplay experience, which, it's okay, we were able to put the first game out there and then learn from it and iterate on it and improve things. So, it's easier to do coming around the second time, but it's such a much better, more polished experience.
Right.
Even the first game, which, we love. It's a huge success for us. 12 million unique players. I mean, that's great.
On basically on one platform as
on
well.
On Xbox One and PC
as well. So. Microsoft are doing this sort of cross-buy thing. Play anywhere. Are you guys going to do that with Titanfall 2 on PC and Xbox One, or?
Probably not. I think you have to be a Windows 10 specific game, and we're not. So
okay, fair enough. And what's it like getting onto PlayStation as well? I mean, was this always the plan to sort of get the first one out? You were a fledgling studio again. I mean, you've got an incredible amount of experience, but it was a new first-person IP, which is never a surefire win, and a new studio. You managed to do it. Was the plan always to do PS4 and always to do a campaign once you sort of had that win behind you?
On the platform side, we kind of always assumed we would, expand out the platforms. We want more players. We were going to launch on Xbox One, just because it was, like you said, we were a startup. We were able to focus on getting the mechanics of the game right and not worry about multiple platforms and, the bigger development side. For single player, we actually looked at it for the first game. And you look at the problems that come with all this extra movement, and how do you solve that, and how do you make the game fun? And we decided to focus the energy on multiplayer and put the story elements kind of in there, and experiment with something new. And I think while it went pretty well, there's still a limit of the number of people that want to play that.
Right. I guess it's interesting looking at the first person space now, because for years it seemed like there was not much in terms of imagination, and now we're having this incredible renaissance of almost harpening back to the late 90s in terms of some of the mechanics and movement and whatnot. Where do you think Titanfall 2's sort of uniqueness comes from? What is it that you guys are doing that you don't see in any of these other multiplayer shooters or military shooters or like that?
I don't know. For us, it's just about creating an experience that we love to play and we think is great. So I don't know. I don't really look at it that way necessarily. I mean, we play other games and we see other games, and sometimes we're influenced, on things we should do or shouldn't do based on what we see. But ultimately, it's about creating an experience that we're proud of. We have an amazing team that works their ass off to bring these things out, and if we're proud of it, then we hope other people will enjoy it as well.
Cool. I also want to get your take on Scorpio and what Microsoft are doing with their sort of split generation, or iterating within a generation. You've been around the industry for a long time. What is your take on that? Do you think it'll be easy for developers to do that as it is for scalability in PC, or do you foresee problems for that? Are you looking at Titanfall 2 even with that in mind?
We are. I think, coming from a PC background in a lot of ways, I think you're used to that, kind of scaling things based on, people have different graphics cards or CPU power. So it'll be interesting to see if we get this, bringing more people in instead of ending an era of one console and moving on to the next, and you kind of leave a bunch of people behind. Now it's much like you do with a phone. It's like I get a new phone, I give the old one to my kid. So now, are you going to give the old console to your nephew, or your will it expand out and bring more people in and have give us more people to kind of serve? And hopefully that's the case.
Have you considering virtual reality at all? I mean, you're coming out on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, perhaps you're doing something, PC, there's 1,000,001 headsets. Is that something you don't even want to touch at the moment?
Right now we're focused on getting the game done.
Right.
So that's ultimately, the experience has to be good. We've, teased around, done some things where, the game runs in VR, and standing next to a Titan as it's moving around and seeing the scale is stunning. I think right now the movement in the game is maybe not conducive to not vomiting.
Okay, yeah.
But as things get better and we see how people solve problems, I think there's going to be some amazing advancements.
Good stuff. We're excited to play Titanfall 2, Vince.
Oh, thank you so much.
When is it out and on what platforms?
It's out on October 28th, which I think is important because if you saw our collector's edition, it's the wearable helmet.
Okay, yeah,
So
yeah.
I expect to see a lot of pilots this Halloween.
Awesome.
And it'll be on PS4, Xbox One, and PC.
Good stuff. Vince Zampella, thank you so much for coming on GameSpot Stage. Always a
My pleasure.
Cool. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. We have a bunch of other wonderful interviews coming up. Ed Boon is in the house for Injustice 2. We'll be back in 5 minutes. See you then.